I'm Gwendolyn Sterk of Sterk Family Law, and welcome to Resource Sessions. I'm honored and privileged today to have with us as our not-for-profit hero of the month, the Southland Development Authority. And I have both Bo Kemp with me as well as Emmanuel Davila with me to be able to explain what great things they do in our community. So, Bo, I know you've been involved with the organization since 2019. Can you first give us a little bit of the history and the background of the organization?
Sure. So in 2017, uh, Tony Preckwinkle, president of Cook County, was evaluating how we could effectively create an organization that would support economic development for all of the cities, towns, and villages in South Cook County, and created a committee that was originally called the South Suburban Economic Growth Initiative, of which I participated in part. And the purpose of that committee was to evaluate all the best practices of how do you work with 45, 60 cities, towns, and villages that are in a particular area around the country. So we had an opportunity to visit with Kansas City, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, and evaluate how they've created entities that would, in fact, spur kind of a holistic growth in a location like South Cook County. In addition, we started to think about what were the needs of the cities, towns, and villages. You know, the vast majority of the cities, towns, and villages in our space have less than 15,000 people. And as such, they have a very small group of staff that works with the municipality itself. And so often, individual municipalities are responsible for recruiting and attracting business. But because their staff is so small, they don't often have the staff to actually do that, or in some cases, they lack the expertise. And so it was important in the creation of the Southland Development Authority for us to actually think through what the nature of an organization like the SDA would be and how it would support the efforts of municipalities. So after about 2 years of work between 2017 and through 2019, in November of 2019, we officially launched the Southland Development Authority. Now, funny enough, as your memory might serve, that was only a few months prior to COVID lockdown.
Right.
And in 2020, in that time period, we had a budget of only $250,000 and only one full-time person who really worked at the organization. At the time, I was co-chair of the organization,
Okay.
and we have a very solid board, but we were still building our efforts. But at that very moment, one of the important things that happened was we were forced to innovate, and we were forced to actually have to think, what can we do as a new organization with the charge of supporting all of the small and medium-sized businesses in the South suburbs, supporting entrepreneurs, supporting real estate developers, supporting the municipalities in the face of this COVID lockdown. And at that time, we created something that was called the stimulus program, which has now become the Business Growth Services Program. And if you don't mind, this is a great opportunity for Manny to jump in and just describe a little bit of the history of the Business Growth Services Program, because it's become a core of what we do as the SDA and how we've grown over time. After he gives you a little bit of description, I'll pick back up and talk about some of the other things that we do.
Perfect. Looking forward to this. Yes, Manny, tell us
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having us, and Bo, thanks for the segue there. As Bo mentioned, it started as the stimulus program, and that was really triaging cases that were coming in, right? And trying to get help out to people as quickly as possible to really keep them alive during that time. As time progressed, and the COVID crisis started to become more and more under control as it relates to small businesses. Uh, the programming has evolved to be much more about identifying businesses that need help growing their existing business operations, or perhaps the real estate footprint, or helping people start a new business, right? And helping them pivot into other markets. There's a number of businesses that we work with, but to kind of sum it up, we work with, I like to say, someone that wants to sell their mother's cookie recipe to a cookie manufacturer and everything in between, right? So from concept and idea, we help you formalize that business and actually bring it to market. Or you're already in the marketplace and you're looking to grow your client base, you're looking to diversify your revenue, you're looking to access government contracting. We're able to help you do that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bo.
Right.
Well, so
That's a
just
broad range of services, though.
Well, and that's just for our business growth services, which is actually only one of multiple divisions. And
Okay.
just to say one thing specifically about what we've done in business growth services during COVID, we were able to work, we reached out to 10,000 businesses. We directly worked with 400 plus businesses in that time. We gave in depth consulting to over 125 businesses, and we identified and secured almost $11 million of funding, of COVID funding relief for South suburban businesses in that 2020 to 2022 period. And so that really set a foundation of success for us that Manny is now taken to another level. In addition to business growth services, we also do a few other things. We actually work directly with industry targeted groups. So we have something called the Metals Hub, which Manny also manages, and we have a food group where we're building right now a food processing area that includes cold storage. We also help to manage the South Suburban Land Bank and Development Authority, which is separate from the Cook County Land Bank. It is its own land bank. It was actually the very first in the state of Illinois. Joe Van Dyke runs that organization for us. And what we do is we use that organization to identify, target, and secure property that's either underdeveloped, tax delinquent, abandoned, and actually take that property and turn it back into productive use by getting it back on the market. We've been able to leverage the land bank and some of the other work that we do to think more strategically long term about how do you redevelop corners, corridors, and entire neighborhoods of the South suburbs. In addition, we run something called the Municipal Consulting Group. As I mentioned, the majority of the municipalities are less than 15,000 people. And therefore, when they get into a place where they want to bring a new company to their municipality or need to think strategically, they often need help to do that. Our municipal group is representing and working directly with those municipalities, including places like Sauk Village, the village of Hazel Crest, Thornton, and Country Club Hills, where we serve as either an extension of their economic development group or as their whole economic development group as is necessary. Lastly, we have launched a whole series of products, but they're all centered around long-term economic development of real estate. And as such, we are developing our own facilities group, which is evaluating opportunities for us to directly buy, develop, manage, and or sell real estate. One of the very first projects we've been involved with is something called the Harvey Housing Project, where we've identified and bought abandoned property in Harvey that we've redeveloped ourselves, put back on the market, and are now leasing. We own it, but we lease it. We've started to work directly with a large property called Project Bloom, 280 acres that sits in University Park, where we're going to put the cold storage plant that I mentioned related to the food product business in that space. But we're working directly with Governor State and with University Park to develop that 280 acres. And that will be a hundreds of $1 million project that we're involved with. We are supporting our capacity to execute that project by developing something called the Monarch Fund. The Southland Monarch Fund, named after the monarch butterfly, which comes all the way into our region and goes all the way down to Mexico and back every year, allows us to invest in assets, real estate assets in these markets, and couple that investment with infrastructure improvements, everything from utilities and the like. And so all of those products are part of what we do as the SDA that allows us to actually invest and create the growth. Now, all of that's being culminated in something called the Achieve Summit. We're actually hosting a conference this year from June 27th to 29th. It's going to be headlined by Damon John, one of the stars of Shark Tank, and also a founder of FUBU. It also has Nelly Galan, who's a former editor and president of Telemundo, who's now a real estate investor, and Seth Ferguson, who runs the largest multifamily real estate investment firm in Canada. That project, that summit, is designed to bring entrepreneurs and developers together into the Southland so that all of the kinds of products and services that you just heard me describe, we get to share with those folks. In addition, we share the inspiration of the headline speakers that I've just mentioned, and we actually will have a whole series of workshops for people who want to buy a separate piece of investment property for themselves, buy a multifamily unit development that they want to execute, looking to buy a company themselves, or they're in succession planning and looking to sell a product, their business, so that they can retire. We're going to be actually bringing all those people together to help foster that. And again, that's June 27th through 29th of this year, 2025. And you can actually get more information at the achievesummit2025.com. So that's a collection of all of the work that we do as part of the SDA.
That's an incredible amount of work to do to bring people. Now, specifically, Manny, you had a division that you run as well. So I know that you handle programs and client services, but then there's a specific subdivision that really you're working on. Can you explain
Correct.
the target audience for us?
Yeah, so there's two divisions that make up client services, right? So it's our client services group. One of those is business growth services. The business growth services team is about a team of 6 individuals that work directly one-on-one with businesses to advise them. So we provide professional guidance for business growth there. We connect them to resources, whether that's lending, succession planning resources, and we also connect them to educational opportunities. A lot of that we do ourselves. So we do training seminars, we do webinars, we do cohort training. We cover things from financials for your business, marketing, digital marketing, HR related matters. Um, and then we also work with a number of different groups and target populations throughout the Southland that have historically not been able to access certain programs or certain resources. You know, think of veterans and smaller businesses, right? And we design programming to make sure that they get access to that information. The other group is the Metals Hub. And the Metals Hub works to assess the capabilities of metals manufacturers in the Southland to really get a deep understanding of how they could perform if they were to bid on requests for qualifications or quotes from original equipment manufacturers, buyers, government contractors, etc. And when we identify that they are prepared to take on those opportunities, we help them along the way find those opportunities and actually support them through that and all the way up to execution.
Well, what an opportunity for growth in the community. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, there's a broad range. It seems to me, what I've heard, that it's from somebody that has that small organization
Mhm.
or just the idea planning, all the way through to that individual who has maybe had a lot of experience in manufacturing or whatever, but now it's time for them to go out on their own and really take that next step. And, being a divorce attorney sounds like an odd combination here, but we get a lot of those people that come through our doors that are in that process and trying to put that value out, put stress on the family. It's a lot of things, but then they've got that opportunity that's out there. And what a wonderful way to be able to support the Southland, because there's a lot of real estate, am I correct, in the area that can be utilized and is really underutilized.
Absolutely.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. And then opportunities for jobs in the community that are available as a result of the work that you're doing. And then just that economic footprint, because there is, look at the corridor that you have in that community, right? I mean, when you go down 80, you've got an unbelievable, or you're just up 94, you've got an unbelievable network of great opportunity there within the community. So I really am impressed that you're taking that and taking those suburban communities to give them that support that they need. Because you're right, there's power when you all join together, but when you've got these small communities that have 15,000 or less of residents, they don't have the economic support or the capability to do what you foster for them.
No, that's right. And I will share with you, it's a bit of self promotion, but maybe relevant to your
Sure.
listener base. We just had a op-ed that was published in Cranes, the Chicago Cranes.
Sure.
And essentially what the op-ed says is, as goes the South Suburbs, goes the entire state of Illinois, right? The largest portion of dollars that go to the state come from the Chicagoland region, because that's where the largest population is. But
Right.
the growth of the Chicagoland region is highly dependent on a couple of key factors. One of which is maintaining itself as one of the few major American cities today that's still actually affordable for middle class people to live in. Now, for folks that live here, you may feel it's not affordable, but if you lived on either coast, you would recognize how much more affordable Chicago is relative to Philly, Boston, DC, San Diego, LA, Seattle. And that affordability matters because in order for companies to try to actually move their headquarters or to expand, they actually need people at every level of work. They need people that are going to make $30,000 a year as well as people who make $300,000 a year. And this is one of the few areas where you still have that population living in close proximity. The second thing that's important is you need access to public transportation. You know, Chicago region is the only region that is west of the Appalachian Mountains that actually you could live in this region without a car. You can't live in any other place that is west of the Appalachian Mountains without a car. Arguably a portion of San Francisco, but that's it. And because of that, what that means is we can create density around these transportation hubs. The growth that's happened already in the western suburbs and the northern suburbs of Chicago, much of it has happened around transportation hubs so that people could move in and out of the city of Chicago. But that type of growth has yet to happen in the south suburbs, but presents itself as an opportunity. And the combination of the need to maintain this middle class, the need to build middle class and affordable housing, both subsidized but just naturally occurring affordable housing, to create density around these transportation hubs at each of our metro stations throughout the south suburbs, presents the greatest opportunity to make sure that as the region grows in population again, which it just started to do recently, it doesn't price all of the people out of the city, which is what happened in places like New York and Boston and all these cities that are on the East Coast that have many of the same dynamics or had those dynamics in the 90s and the 2000s. The South Suburbs presents the opportunity to create the density around metro stops and bus stops, affordable housing that will allow for major companies to move into our space. We have another added benefit, which is Illinois in the South Suburbs still sits in the midst of the agrarian hub, right? All the farming and the breadbasket of America still is in our space. So there's a huge opportunity for food and food-related businesses. That's why we're building this cold storage facility for food in this location. It's still the hub of all the transportation, right? All the built infrastructure in the United States essentially goes through the South Suburbs. 2/3 of every container you see anywhere in North America, not just in the United States, travels through the South Suburbs, right?
Amazing.
It's amazing. And in addition to that, we're still the manufacturing hub. We're the Silicon Valley of manufacturing for all of the United States. And we still have the workforce. We still have the infrastructure. We still have the companies that build things in America. And much of that for Illinois is centered in our South Suburbs. So as we start to address the needs for affordable housing and transportation, we can do that also in the place where you can reclaim a lot of these industries that need to come back from other places from around the world. We sit in this space, and our ability to successfully carry out that mission supports the growth of Chicago land region broadly, and in turn supports the economic viability of the state of Illinois. So really, the South Suburbs is the key to the success for the entirety of the state. And our op-ed that we wrote in November of 2024 in Cranes kind of outlines that in more detail. But that's the theory and the thought about the vision that we have for the South Suburbs.
Sure. And, the Chicago area, and, I'm going back to age myself, but as a kid, your family dynamics would always say, if you can't make a living in the Chicago suburban area, you can't make a living anywhere.
That's right.
We need to return that, especially and focus in the South Suburbs, because there are, when you drive around and you see, everything from, thinking about the shipping industry, right, to putting in the food cold storage, all those opportunities exist, as well as the network of highway and transportation to get those products around the United States. So, to me, it's it's like an untapped resource that needs to be built. So that's how I see it. That's how we grew up. And I think that it's exciting to see that happening and returning.
Well, I'll just say one thing to that, which is we already have the built infrastructure in place, right? So for 200 years, they've been building infrastructure in rail and highways and airports into our space already. And we're about to launch an effort to build another airport in the Peatone area, which will foster and supplement the economic growth in this region. With that built infrastructure, it's very difficult for any other location in the United States to surpass us, right? So our ability to make sure that we are leveraging that built infrastructure and bringing the industries to bear that need to use it in order to maintain our supply chain security, our national security, to increase the opportunity for jobs, to build new industries around advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and quantum. All of that already exists in the Southland. One of the things that people may not realize is all of the dark fiber, the fiber that you use to grow your internet that goes into the city of Chicago, it runs through the South Suburbs. So not only do we have access to water and energy, we have access to fiber, we have access to transportation. Those assets are already here. We don't have to actually ask anybody to build new ones. We just have to build to connect to it. And that gives us an advantage over almost every other area in the country.
Very fascinating. Yeah, very good opportunities exist. Manny, is there anything you want to add for somebody listening that's out there that says, hey, you know what? I have a small business or I'm expanding and I want to start that, or I already have a manufacturing base, but I really want to look at that area to start moving in. How do they get started? What do they do?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Thank you for that. I always tell people entrepreneurship is very lonely. Even if you have a significant other, it doesn't matter. Oftentimes you are thinking about your business 25 hours a day, right? There's only 24, but somehow you find an extra hour to think about it, right? So I would say the first step is to get in contact with us, right? You can reach out directly to me. You can give me a ring. It's 708-722-6066. The number again is 708-722-6066. You can go to our website, southlanddevelopment.org, and you're able to find the calendar for our relationship managers there, and you're able to see what their specialties are and book an appointment directly online as well. But the first step is to just talk to us, right? And the reason why I recommend that, regardless of what stage of business you're in, um, everybody needs a friend that is in tune with the resources and the opportunities that are out there that you do not have time to look for yourself. Many of our business owners, regardless if they're running a 99 employee company or if they're a solopreneur, they just don't have the time to get tapped into all the grant opportunities that are out there, all the lending opportunities, the opportunities to connect with other businesses that they might be able to take on as a new customer, right? A lot of them are maintaining, especially with all the talk of what's happening out there, in terms of macroeconomics and everything around the world. There's a lot of uncertainty. And the best thing you can do is stay connected to an organization like the SDA that is tapped into a lot of information that you just do not have the time to look for yourself. And I think, if you have us in your corner, you probably get a competitive advantage around on anybody who doesn't, because you are tapped in, and it's almost an extension of your team to work with us, right? We
Fantastic.
almost serve like as a business development team in some sense for folks that are interested in government contracting or the metals hub, right? The metals manufacturers. And one thing I'll say about the metals manufacturers, the metals hub initiative is not, in order to be a member, you do not exclusively have to be a metals manufacturer. You can be a business that purchases metals components,
Okay.
or you can be a resource partner that can serve the metals manufacturing industry in the Southland. And we welcome folks from all over Cook County that can really strengthen our members and the ability for them to compete. And this is more than just about trying to be prosperous as a region. Of course, we want to do that. But deeper than that, I mean, there is a serious national security implication.
Yes.
And I feel like, after 9/11, the military was rebranded, in my opinion, as something very noble to participate in. And it was, thank you for your service. That's really what you heard all the time, right? And you still hear it now. And it's very honorable to serve in the military. I think that that's not by accident. I think that that was by design. And there was a lot of dollars pumped into rebranding what it meant to serve. There needs to be a similar effort with manufacturing. There needs to be a similar effort to say to young people, going into manufacturing is patriotic. It is not dark, dirty, and dangerous as it used to be. It's not the 1940s and
Right.
1950s. There is definitely a lucrative career in manufacturing. It needs to be rebranded, and we welcome anybody and everybody that wants to participate in that effort, whether you're a manufacturer yourself or you are someone that can help us grow and strengthen metals manufacturing in the Southland. So, back to your original question, the first step is getting in contact with us, and we're more than happy to connect with you and discuss how you can be a part of what we're doing.
I
If
think
I
it's
don't,
very fascinating your link to national security because I think that that's really a new, it's not new,
Hmm.
it's just a new way of presenting it. And it really does make sense and it gives that pride. And there are a lot of alternatives, people that feel that they can't go forward because maybe they don't have the education or the education
Correct.
costs become a barrier, but yet they can provide the services and really render, they can make a living as an owner, they can offer jobs in the community and they can utilize the national security. So it's all those things together. And I agree with you with the pride that comes with that. Because look, that's what our country was based on, right? When you
Hmm.
look back at the 1950s and the people that returned from the war, they started working in the community and they were strong and forming those bonds of what they did. So what a wonderful opportunity. And I didn't mean to interrupt you both. So go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to add one of the things that we actually were able to do with the Metals Hub last year is we actually conducted a workforce training seminar that was specifically for high school students in the South Suburbs. And we had a number of students who participated. And out of those students, two of those students from high school got full-time job offers. Both of them happened to be women. More than two got offers. They all got offers, but two of them got full-time offers that were women and they were doing welding. Those young women will be 18 years old, making between $80,000 and $100,000 in the next 2 years.
Right.
Right. And those are the types that the point that Manny is making is that this is not the dirty, dingy job that you thought of in the past.
Right.
This is precision welding that actually requires a great deal of understanding and knowledge and patience and effort, but it becomes a craft and you get paid for that craft.
Right.
And so I would just encourage any of those who are listening. There's a need for welders.
There is, and just to share a story from the divorce world, I'm very proud. And of course, I could never mention names, but I have had women who have gone through a divorce and needed to rebuild their life, and they went to welding school and now have a productive living and are able to support their family. So it gives a great opportunity for people who, maybe you're starting out or maybe you're returning to the workforce or looking for a better way to support your family. And it's an absolutely wonderful opportunity. So I think that you're right. We need to encourage people within that space to say, not everybody can be in every job, but it makes your job is no less important in the overall production of our community as any other job.
Yep,
Right?
that's right.
It's like the same thing. Divorce is like a puzzle and we put together the pieces, and you're taking these communities and looking at manufacturing and putting together all these wonderful opportunities. So I have really enjoyed our conversation today, gentlemen. I think that it is a wonderful opportunity. I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time. We are going to share the information about the upcoming summits and different trainings that might be available and be able to link to be able to share that with our clientele as well. So tell us if we're listening today and we're saying, look, there's two different types of audience here. There's the audience that really is interested to say, how can Southland Development Authority help me where I am in my life? But there's another audience that's out there that's saying, hey, I want to support this community because this is how I grew up, or this is a space I know we need to have to develop. Tell us how people can help your organization as well. How can we support you?
Well, there are a couple of ways. One, get involved. And Manny actually already kind of solicited and said, if you are thinking about starting a business, even if you don't have one, if you have a business and you're thinking about selling your business, if you're thinking about buying a business, if you want to buy a home, or you want to buy a second home, or you want to invest, all of those are reasons to reach out to us. And we have services that support people in all of those different spaces. One of the easiest things to do is to attend one of our events. And if you go to our website, which is southlanddevelopment.org, you can actually see a calendar of all of our events. But I would highly encourage everyone that's listening to this to attend the Achieve Summit. And you can get information at achievesummit2025.com. That event, which will be June 27th to 29th at Tinley Park Convention Center, is going to have just a wealth. First of all of us will be there. So you'll be able to talk directly to us and our team. But we'll have, as I mentioned, Damon John from Shark Tank, ABC Shark Tank, and Fubu. You'll have Nellie Galan. You'll have Seth Ferguson and a variety of other speakers that are all going to be talking about the issues that we've discussed today.
That's fantastic. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you. I know your time is valuable and a great asset that all of you bring. So we appreciate it and we want to get the word out. And thanks for this opportunity.
Great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.